Oh, yes. Ladies and gentlemen, we got two for the price of one this weekend. We, of course, are the DFS Army Fantasy Football Show. I got my guy on, Flex Matt. Matt, we're here today to talk about a real life rookie mock draft where we had 12 different managers mocking a 3-round super flex dynasty rookie draft. You excited about this, brother?
Oh, yes, I am, Shane. I got a lot of, here's what I'd like to say. Stay tuned because I'm
Hmm.
going to drop a couple nuggets that I think is going to be extremely actionable for your taxi squads this year, which I think,
Mm-hmm.
when you go and you listen to Dynasty content anywhere else, you're going to get a lot of the guys at the top. Okay. And we got some stuff to talk about the guys at the top, but I think today I've got a little bit to say about some of the guys not at the top who might be, on your taxi squads or guys that you should be going after, guys that Brandon Adam has no idea about. I'm sure of it. I'm sure of it. Okay. But first, I would like to say two things. One is I'm going to defend my Sean Tucker take. Okay. A medical kept this guy from being a surefire second or third round draft pick. Okay. And here's the thing. Tampa Bay signs Sean Tucker not because they didn't not like the guy. I mean, they clearly saw that he was a perfect fit in Tampa Bay. Okay. It wouldn't surprise me at all that by the end of this year, Sean Tucker's RB1 in Tampa has completely ran away with the position, the starting role in that job for Tampa. So it wouldn't surprise me. It also wouldn't surprise me. Another guy that got DQ'd for a medical is Justin Ross. Okay. It also wouldn't surprise me that he takes up all of Rashee Rice's hype and,
Oh, my God.
just
We're 2
everything
minutes in and it's off the rails, baby. It's
that's
off the rails.
what I'm
Okay,
trying to
so
say.
all
So
right.
that was my defending of that. And then the other way that I'd like to start this, and this is maybe a question for you,
Mm-hmm.
Shane, is are we a little bit too interested in this class? That's a great way to start because I'm looking at next year's class. Okay,
Yep.
so I'm looking at you want to talk about being QB friendly. Next year's class had about 2 or 3 QBs, at least 2 or 3 of them that should have came out this year, or maybe were originally slated to in the Devy community. So you have probably 7 QBs next year that are draftable. You have a good 3 or 4 running backs, and then you have obviously a lot of pop, flash, and sizzle at the top, where this class you don't. So I'm just kind of wondering when
Mm-hmm.
you get, and I hate to say this because I know the thing about Jahmyr Gibbs is, top 15 running backs in real NFL have hit almost every single time. I mean, there is very, very
Yep.
little hits for top 15 drafted running backs. So I'm not saying that I don't like Jahmyr Gibbs. Yes, Brandon, I was really not appreciative of your Jahmyr Gibbs
Slander.
RB2 takes because he was comping him to Alvin Kamara, where he is absolutely not Alvin Kamara. He's nowhere near Alvin Kamara. He's
Okay,
James Cook plus.
Matthew, before we take this show completely off the rails, let's add some context here. Where do we hail from? We hail, of course, from DFSArmy.com. Go check it out now, DFSArmy.com. Follow the links in the show description. If you're new to this DFS game, you want to try it out for free, there's instructions of how to get a free month of a VIP membership over at dfsarmy.com in the show description. If you want to follow along with this mock draft, I've included the link. Of course, our favorite platform is Sleeper for all of our dynasty leagues, frankly, for all of our redraft leagues as well. Fantastic. I like the fact that, Matt, I don't know if you knew this, but when I was building this mock draft, you can actually create the settings and set it up so that if you want it to be just any open position, it's fantastic for mock drafts because you choose a setting and it will actually adjust the ADPs based off of the type of rookie draft you want to participate in, which is fantastic. So with that in mind, Matt, you talked about Jahmyr Gibbs. You hinted it. he fell to me at the 1.7 in this mock draft, which I don't think that's going to happen in your average draft. But let's get down to it. So what do we have here? We had a 3-round, 12-person, which is a typical league, Superflex mock draft. These are all real managers that we play in our dynasty leagues with. So they're sharp people. They have a good pulse on the rookie market. And that's why it's a very actionable, call it, process to go through these mock drafts. And then what we're going to find, I find, Matt, you talked about how, is this really a strong class? I would argue the top 9 or 10 picks are decent picks that are going to have year one and potentially longer than that, hopefully longer than that, impact in your dynasty leagues. But after that, man, it's a dog's breakfast. It's wide open at round 2. And we're going to get into that. So let's get started here, because you were drafting out of the 1.5 and I was drafting out of the 1.7. I'm just going to run down how round 1 of this draft went, okay? So 101, no surprise, Matt, Bijan Robinson went off the board. Very quickly, not shocking at all, right? That's pretty consensus. You would agree?
I'd agree.
Okay, so then in no particular order, actually we did a real order, but it went Anthony Richardson, Bryce Young, and CJ Stroud. Again, definitively, for the most part in these Superflex drafts, pick and choose your poison, but those 3 quarterbacks are typically going off the board. And then at 1.5, the cockamamie charlatan himself steps in. He chooses one of my favorite players, my wide receiver 2, Jordan Addison. So let's talk about your pick, 1.5, Jordan Addison. You chose him above Jackson Smith and Jigba. You chose him above the aforementioned Jahmyr Gibbs. Explain yourself, sir.
Okay, are we going to put the draft up on the screen share here just for the people if they want to come back and watch it? But yeah, that's I would agree. At 1.05, Jordan Addison was a little bit of a spicy take. I think it definitely shocked the draft room a tad bit. I know Brandon was drafting after me and probably loved being right after me because JSN's his boy. Now here's the thing, I'm a Seattle Seahawks fan. I love JSN. So, but I'm starting to look at my process a little bit and how I view this class, and am seeing a point where what's going to, I think, matter the most is where can you turn your picks into true value? Because let's say in the first round, top 5 pick, right? You get a wide receiver 3 on his team. It's not going to perform incredibly well in the very first year. That's JSN, right? I love JSN for the future. And I know that Tyler Lockett's going to be out of that offense. We don't pass a lot to the tight end. It's more of an outlet for us in a run first offense. So my thing is, why aren't we looking at JSN and Zay Flowers in a more similar situation? Because JSN is going to be the 3rd read there. Zay Flowers is likely to be the 3rd read in Baltimore, another run first offense. The reason why Quentin Johnston is somebody that's probably that 2 or 3 steps up, and just like the draft that we're talking about here, 2 or 3, 4 picks up ahead of Zay Flowers. He is also the 3rd read in an offense where he's sitting behind 2 older guys. So you can theorize away that he's a future 1. With JSN, he's a future 2, but Addison is a 2 right away with no competition for that second look other than the tight end who excelled last year. So now when you talk about defending the Minnesota Vikings, you're working on taking away their 2 options, and then you're going to let Jordan Addison beat you if he can. And I think that he is going to. And for the same exact reason that Jackson Smith and why everyone loves him is because of course, DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett going to be locked up. So he is going to be free, but that's a run first offense. Okay. Not a heavily pass volumed. When you look at the projection, I believe JSN somewhere around 60 receptions, probably around 80, 85 targets. The projection for Jordan Addison is somewhere in the 120 target realm. And again, when I'm making my first round picks, especially at the wide receiver position, I need to hit. in that first year, because even if I want to deal Jordan Addison, like I'm looking at Zay Flowers in the first round, I'm just like, I'm not going to pick him because even at the height, he's going to be a 60 catch guy at his height, 600, 700 yards, maybe low volume and touch. I mean, Deontay Johnson, you saw how far he fell this year because of the production. And we're going to get into another guy who I really like in the second round who screams. Well, go ahead.
Let's talk about Jordan Addison real quick here, okay? So here's the argument for Jordan Addison, okay? As a context, for those of you who don't know, he was drafted to the Minnesota Vikings, right? So we know definitively he's going to be the 2 in that offense. There's no chance he's going to be the number 1 unless, I'm not even going to say it, but let's just say Justin Jefferson misses time, okay?
Dude. No, you better.
No, because I don't know. What's a positive spin on this? I can't really think of a positive spin. Let's just say he's the number 1 wide receiver in that offense for a few weeks. He's going to demand the Lions target share. The thing is that even as the number 2 wide receiver in this pass offense, he's going to get opportunity. Now, what we like is that when Kevin O'Connell started as the Vikings head coach last season, in neutral game scripts, okay, so this is when the game is relatively tied, the Vikings ranked 4th in passing script in neutral game situations. So that's one notch in Jordan Addison's favor. The second notch in this situation is the fact that we saw last year in our DFS lineups and just even season long, we wanted to play wide receivers against the Minnesota Vikings because they had one of the most abysmal pass defenses in the league, which meant shootouts. Because guess what? When they're getting scored on, they got to put up points. So we like the fact that this is going to be a high volume offense in terms of the throwing game in both neutral and, of course, if they're behind in situations. And listen, do we really think that Minnesota is going to be up in a lot of games? I'm a little bit reluctant to say that. Now, obviously, Matt, the ding against this guy is the fact that he's 5'11", 173 pounds, and I'm a bit of a BMI snob. I like the BMI. I think it's a pretty big. It's an important factor when looking at these players to just have a pulse on their durability. And 25 typically is like the absolute minimum. Usually you want 27, 28 from a BMI perspective. Jordan Addison's at 24.1, right? So for his size, he's a smaller dude. And then he went to the combine and didn't really produce at the combine. So he's not the most athletic of these players. The thing is that he was an absolute monster at his last year at Pitt. He won the Biletnikoff Award in 2021. And it's just an absolute, like, just his ability to get open is, I would say, one of the best in this class. So I agree, Matt, that if you're looking at both short-term, but also potentially long-term production, Jordan Addison could come out in 3 years as the most productive wide receiver in this class. So I get it. I think you can easily defend that point.
Yeah, and again, Kirk Cousins always in a contract year, it seems like, right? So
yes,
he is a great fantasy quarterback. Last year, Mike Dickinson was hailing Kirk Cousins as the guy he was drafting all the time because he was almost free in relation to the rest of the top 12 QBs, and he was always going to give you top 11 production. Let me talk about Adam Thielen for a second, who sat in that offense for many years as soon as Justin Jefferson got in. But yeah, 74 receptions, 67 receptions, 70 receptions, right? 700 yards, 900 yards. But that's not really what I'm talking about here. You talk about receptions, 70 yards, 900 yards, 74 receptions, but 14 touchdowns, 10 touchdowns, at least 6 last year on 70 receptions, where the wide receiver 2 in that offense, in that putrid defense, with that putrid defense, always having to play from behind, at least a 6 touchdown floor, which I would say maybe the upside for Jackson this year is 6 as an upside. You know what I mean? His floor is probably 3 or 4. He's going to rack up the receptions, but I like them both. I'm just saying, first year production, I think, has to matter a little bit more when you're speaking about this class. And that's also the Gibbs corollary. See, this class, and the reason why I was asking you, what do we really think about this class? Because this class, you speak out of both sides of your mouth when you talk about this class. You reference the stats over here, but then he's small, so we got to knock him down. Then you go to quarterback. Well, he's small, but he's got this. It's like, well, you just knocked people for being small on this side, but now you're saying, it's fine over here. It's like, well, we really won't know. And that's the thing. First year production, I think, matters. And last year when Brandon Adam was banging the table for Treylon Burks, it's like, now look at him. You almost can't even.
When he was healthy, he played well, Matt. You can't deny that.
Man, can you? I mean, are you sure about that? You sure about that? I mean, that's the thing. It's fine next year if they got another wide receiver coming out from this class. If Tennessee was able to, I mean, you talked about it this year. That's why Tennessee was. JSN was mocked to Tennessee. It probably would have literally destroyed all value Treylon Burks had if that would have happened, and it might happen next year. So you got to get away and out from under these guys, and that's the issue. Is you don't want to be drafting these guys that aren't going to run into these great number one roles. Look at Olave, look at Garrett Wilson, look at Drake London. Even those guys were able to produce year one, at least to the point where they still have value. You can't even trade Wan'Dale Robinson right now. You can't trade Treylon Burks right now. It's like you're not getting the value for where you drafted him. So that's where I'm just looking at this class, and I'm looking at the guy like Gibbs, right? So you picked Gibbs at 7. So Jackson Smith went 6, which is fine. Gibbs probably goes there. JSN or Gibbs right at 7. You're like happy if either of those guys falls to you at 7, right? So like 7 straight.
100%. So I have my rankings. For those of you who are VIP members, we are going to have the rankings up on the site very, 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 very soon. We were working on getting the link updated yesterday. We just need Geek to put up his rankings, and then we're going to have the official Dynasty Rookie rankings on the site. But spoiler alert, I have JSN and Jahmyr Gibbs in the same tier, right above Jordan Addison. I have Jordan Addison as my 1.7 overall in these drafts. So having Jahmyr Gibbs fall to me at 1.7 was fantastic. Listen, I actually have, if I'm in multiple drafts and I'm saying I'm at the 1.6, I'm just happy to see who falls to me. If I'm at the 1.5 in multiple drafts, I'm probably going to have a similar share of my JSN and my Jahmyr Gibbs. The thing about Jahmyr Gibbs is that things have to pretty much fall absolutely perfect for him to actually produce in fantasy football, which because of the draft capital, we do think he's going to get the opportunity in that offense to be a major contributing factor in that offense. But when you compare just the top say RB1, RB2, RB3s, right? So the top 36 running backs, very few of these guys actually had a size profile similar to Jahmyr Gibbs. The only guys who did, so right around that 200-pound mark, Austin Eckler coming out of college, 199 pounds. Christian McCaffrey, 202 pounds. Okay. Those guys just happen to be the 1 and 2 in terms of PPR points per game scored last year. And that is because of their insane opportunity share within that offense, right? So a typical running back, you like to see between 10 to 12% of a target share in an NFL team for these running backs. Austin Eckler last year, 18.85% target share. Christian McCaffrey, 21.84. Okay. That is an absolute elite opportunity in the passing game. That's how Jahmyr Gibbs is going to make his hay. And fortunately for us, he's a pretty damn good catcher of the ball, right? So when you look at that perspective, you look at the fact that they obviously hated DeAndre Swift. Jahmyr Gibbs in year 1 is going to have a very real opportunity to score fantasy points. The problem is, Matt, for those of you who are participating in these early best ball drafts, Jahmyr Gibbs is going smack dab in the middle of round 3. It's a little bit rich for my blood for a guy that probably isn't going to profile to have a lot of touchdowns. Like if you're doing these projections, and I'm not one of these projection guys, but if there's these companies that do projections, I'm going to guess there's going to say maybe 3 rushing touchdowns, right? Whereas it's because David Montgomery is going to get the lion's share of that opportunity. We saw what they like to do with Jamal Williams last year, right? So that's the only thing that worries me is about that massive touchdown upside. But right around the mid-third round, like how do you feel about that in a half PPR setting, Matt? Like is that about right, do you think?
Yeah, well, I mean, it has to be right just because we're so rookie crazy, you know?
Yeah.
And because we're so rookie crazy, Mike Evans has 0 value in Dynasty, you know, which is an atrocity. But it's fine. It's fine. I mean, and here's the thing. I don't mind it. So the reason why I love the Lions is they are a little bit of a DGAF team. They're running it like they're kind of, you know, like their hair's on fire a little bit. They love the guys they love, and they are grabbing the team they want, and they have been able to produce. Dan Campbell's been able to produce over there, so you can't really knock it. Swift, you know, the issue with Swift and why I was so okay with it is when you went and watched Hard Knocks, you saw in the coaching room that the running backs coach actually loved DeAndre Swift. I don't see where that broke apart, but maybe he just wasn't the right. I mean, maybe they grabbed a hold of him and he just wasn't the right guy for their fit in the system. So that's fine. They go and they really go after Jahmyr Gibbs. A problem with going for draft capital for production is if you rely on that stat so much, and this is why I was talking out both sides of your mouth, then Charbonnet can't fall but too far behind 2.1, 2.2, 2.3 when I'm not even drafting him at all this year. So it's like draft capital works, but opportunity situation also. If Jahmyr Gibbs was drafted 15 overall or whatever overall, 12 overall or whatever that they drafted him as, just to be a pass catcher in this offense, then I would just have to say it all, like you said, it all has to fly right with him. And this is the point where Jahmyr Gibbs probably garnishes the most trade value that you could get out of this first round outside of QBs. And you should trade the pick. You heard it here. Even if he ends up being good, the shelf life of running backs is not great. Every running back has dealt with injuries. Every single one, even big guys. Rashad Penny is a very big guy, okay? Large, injury prone, okay? Christian McCaffrey's missed time. Eckler has been the one that's been pretty darn good. So if you're hoping he's Eckler, just because, the Eckler was once in a lifetime, it seems like, and is recent, then that's just recency bias. You should get out of the pick at at Gibbs and get into next year's class, because there's 2 or 3 running backs that will probably be right at 105, 104, 106, 7 that are going to have a better profile with more production baked in. Get out of the pick. Just do it.
So if you were trading away that pick, Matt, you would take a flyer 1 next year, understanding that if you're trading away a 1 to a player this year, maybe this guy's going to have a good team, right? Because we do believe that
maybe not. I mean, is it possible that, like, you look at the Bijan Robinson at 101, 102, if you choose not to draft Bijan, right, and you go Anthony Richardson or QB in your top 4, even though there's a running back there, I mean, you can theorize away that these teams might have good running backs. I mean, there's a lot of 101 dynasty teams, I believe, that have Saquon and Eckler on the team, but the rest of the team stinks, or they might need a QB that bad. And so if you decide to trade next year's pick, so if you're Houston, right? If you're Houston on your dynasty team, you went out and you drafted CJ, but then you trade away your next year's pick to go right to 3. So that's a scenario I can see where you come out with QB and running back out of these first 5 picks, and then you're trading away your next year's top 5 as well. It's possible. And Gibbs has the capital to be worth that. So it's not like you're hosing anybody. And maybe you get 2.4 as well.
Matt, why not just... So you would rather just punt this year?
Not this year. Certain guys. The Gibbs is where I'd punt. Quentin Johnston is where I'd punt.
Gibbs is going right around 1.5, 1.6. Why not just do what you did and just take your Jordan Addison, just take your JSN if you don't feel that way about Gibbs? Like, if you're in a rebuild team, then what's the problem of grabbing one of these younger wide receivers knowing they're not going to produce till next year?
There is no problem with it, but if you're playing dynasty fantasy football and you're looking ahead for a couple years with the pick, then you should also be looking ahead with the draft class. And next year, so if you're at 105 and you're in a rebuild, I agree. Take Addison. He's a wide receiver too. But next year, your top 5 overall pick, if you're back in the top 5 next year, if you trade away Addison and you're back in the top 5 next year, that's going to mean a lot more for your team than Addison this year as a wide receiver too.
The one thing I will caution people on, okay, is we always have this additive. Next year's class is going to be great, right? It's so hard for us to predict a year out how the class is going to look until they go through the process, right? Maybe there's a catastrophic injury for one of these players, and then they just completely get punted, right? I typically generally believe, as I've been playing Dynasty now over the years, that people overvalue the rookie picks. So if you can get a good value and trade away this rookie pick for Jahmyr Gibbs and get an established starter and get some picks for next year, or even like a second, right? This year, because there's a lot of talent in round 2 this year. We just don't know which one of these guys is going to actually fire at the NFL level. I'm okay with that if you're going to do it for a tried and true prospect, but to just straight up trade out of the pick, I have a problem with that because, well, I wouldn't say a problem with it, but I would caution you because immediate fantasy production matters, right? So if you're a contending team, then you want a player on your team this year that you can plug into your starting lineup. Jahmyr Gibbs is one of those guys. Okay, let's move on from Jahmyr Gibbs because this is kind of where it gets interesting, right? Even Jordan Addison, I would argue, is pretty definitively like the 1.7 in these drafts, right? It's really when you get to the Quentin Johnston. Well, this is how it went off for those who are listening. So at the 1.8, it went Quentin Johnston. At the 1.9, it went Dalton Kincaid, who is a tight end drafted into Buffalo. At 110, our girl Jenny took Will Levis, which in a super flex draft, man, I have no problem with going Will Levis at 110 there. Then our guy Bali, common listener, love Bali, we play in a league with him. He went Devon Achane, running back, drafted to Miami. And finally, DJ Space Cowboy, another guy that I play in a league with, an absolute steal. He got Zay Flowers to the 112. And I don't know if you listened to the show yesterday, Matt. It sounds like you did. But our guy Brandon did not have a lot of kind words to say to Zay Flowers in terms of his production this year. Based on what you were saying at the start of the show, you kind of agree with them, right? You've got some hesitation this year. But just to reiterate, it went Quentin Johnston, Dalton Kincaid, Will Levis, Devon Achane, and then Zay Flowers to close out the first round. Now, first, Matt, I'm going to throw it back to you here. Are there any guys there that you feel don't deserve to be in round 1 of these rookie drafts?
Of the people that we had just mentioned, that is your first round.
Yeah.
I don't think that there is any way that the first round doesn't consist of exactly those 12 players. At this point, Achane could be your 108. So you could rotate those players any which way. Now, that's what I'm saying. I don't like Achane. I don't like Zay Flowers. I can draft Quentin Johnston. Don't want to. Will Levis is like okay, you might as well. You're at the end of the draft. Maybe you got Jordan Love, Kirk Cousins, and David Jones or Daniel Jones and Goff as your QB. So it's like, yeah, you got to take a shot on Levis right there. You probably have a good team if you're at the end of the draft and Levis falling to you. I mean, you got to look at pre-draft rankings too. A lot of people talk about how Darnell Washington I mean, you don't see Darnell Washington.
No, he wasn't drafted
this first 30 rounds, which I have I listen to a lot of content all over the place. Washington probably deserves to be somewhere in your mid 3s, late 2s, just off pre-draft, pre-draft hype anyway.
So Darnell Washington, Matt, for those who aren't familiar with him, he is the rookie tight end who was drafted to Pittsburgh. So people are worried that he's going to be playing next to Pat Freiermuth. And the biggest risk that people have with drafting this guy from a fantasy perspective is there's a lot of talk that he's going to be the inline blocking tight end because Darnell Washington's a fantastic run blocker, right? And pass blocker, frankly. So that's the biggest worry that people have. So even in 2 tight end sets, maybe the ball's going to go to Pat Freiermuth out of those 2 tight ends. So that's why he didn't fall. Now, I had Darnell Washington in my queue. I ended up going with Israel Abanikanda at pick 3.7, but I would have considered Darnell Washington right in that range. What kind of surprised me is the fact that Luke Schoonmaker went at 312. That's kind of where I thought Darnell Washington should have gone, right? I would have taken Washington over Schoonmaker, who went to Dallas. But the one thing I will say is that the only thing that I have different is I've got Devon Achane going closer to higher round 2, and I've got Kendre Miller as my pick 1.12. So Kendre Miller, of course, was drafted to New Orleans. The reason that I have that guy higher, and Kendre Miller ended up going 2.5 to you. Oh, that's a steal, Matthew, back at 2.5. God dang.
Yes.
So Kendre Miller, he is the stud running back at a TCU. There's a few things I like about this guy. One, he's got the prototypical size. He's 5'11", 215 pounds. When you look at just his overall running ability, I would say he ranks up there in this class. In 2022, so now this is per PFF, he avoided tackles in the top 25 rate in college football. So from a running perspective, he's fantastic. The question mark for a guy like Kendre Miller, falls to the fact that he doesn't have the best receiving profile. His best season reception share was only 6%, which is quite low. You look for closer to 10% for these guys to actually have an impact. And so that's a little bit worrisome. But when you look at his backmates, there's Alvin Kamara, 28 years old, or he's going to be 28 when the season starts. Obviously, there's some concern there that he could miss time. I mean, it's a smoking gun, Matt. I would say almost literally a smoking gun. There's film of Alvin Kamara beating up this guy at a work event, at the NFL event. To me, it's absolutely shocking. If something like this happened at your workplace, this guy would have been suspended immediately. So NFL, I think you got to do better in that respect. It's likely going to happen this year. But then Jamal Williams, who New Orleans picked up on a contract this year, he's also going to be 28 when the season starts. Kendre Miller, he's 20.7 years old, which means he'll just be turning 21 years old when the season starts. I like the fact that he's young. And I'm going to take that upside of that profile over a guy like Devon Achane, who I love from a fun perspective, but I worry about his true impact on a day-to-day basis. I'm not fading him completely, but I'm going to take Kendre Miller over Devon Achane.
I agree. That's why I took him. That's why I took him. I don't think it's unpopular. And if you're listening to this and you take Kendre Miller because of it, then that's exactly why we're here. Because that's the thing. I would prefer to trade Achane and grab 2 early seconds or something like that. Or again, a next year's 2 and a 2 this year. You know what I mean? For Achane, I'm happier with that because Achane may come out ahead this year, which is fine. And I talked about 1-year production, which is fine, especially if you want to move on from Achane. And running backs, the replacement value is not there. So that's why I'm okay with drafting Achane in the first round. I'm not going to do it, but I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
That's why I want to trade the pick. But if you are the one trading for Achane or drafting Achane, when he does perform pretty well this year, then you can get rid of him. And he'll have a lot more value than 1.11. But talk about Kendre Miller, not even 21. The knock on Kendre Miller is you want him to be Alvin Kamara, but he's not. So, and that's okay. He's a big running back that doesn't run big. And that's what scares me a little bit. He's a little too juke friendly, but you could coach that away. Hey, you're 21 years old. We're going to give you the ball. Go run somebody over. Don't do this. And that's fine if the hole is there. He has speed. A lot of outlets have him as the second running back pre-draft, ones that we love. So if I was all over him as RB2 pre-draft, then Brandon would have been licking my boots on it. But since I was on Sean Tucker, that's fine. Kendre Miller falling to me at 2.5 here was an absolute steal, although I did gift Brandon Hendon Hooker in a super flex, which I also love. Hated to gift it to him, but
let's talk about the first half of this round, okay, for the listening audience. So at 2.1, Josh Downs, which, man, I love Josh Downs. Everything more I read about this guy, I think he's going to have an immediate impact in Indianapolis along with Anthony Richardson. And it's just everything I read about this guy in terms of just his quality, he's got a good head in this space. He's got production. Josh Downs is going to be a star. I believe it. So getting him up to 2.1, great value there. 2.2 went Zach Charbonnet, who's drafted by Seattle. Now is going to be in a bit of a timeshare with our guy Ken Walker. That's a little bit worrisome. Jonathan Mingo went up to 2.3. Jonathan Mingo was drafted by Carolina. So he's going to be playing along Bryce Young. Our guy actually, a hook and ladder who drafted him, went Bryce Young at to 1.3 and then got his boy Jonathan Mingo at to 2.3. So he's rocking the Carolina stack there. Rashee Rice felt him, our guy Mike, at the 2.4. You got Kendre Miller at 2.5. And then to your point, Hendon Hooker in a Superflex league, 2.6. I think that's absolutely great value. That's about right where he should be going. He's within that tier there. So
it's right there where it starts to actually get funky. And that's exactly it. But I want to talk about this real quick before we're over here. Notice right here. So the consensus right now at 102 is Richardson, even though the more, I think the closer and closer that we actually get to real NFL, if your rookie drafts are getting closer and closer to September or August, I think CJ Stroud is going to slot in as the second QB taken. I think it's everybody's getting a little, rookie crazy, a little, and that's fine. I'm not saying don't draft Richardson. I'm just saying I think CJ Stroud will nestle himself in as the second QB drafted. I think he has the best floor ceiling combo, and you want to be safer with the pick potentially. But look at this. It's such a really cool class because I love stacking in Dynasty. Yes, especially not only is it fun, it makes the game fun, but then if you're going to watch Richardson, then so we had a chance here, and I think that you will have a chance in your drafts as well. Anthony Richardson, Josh Downs stack, book it. Bryce Young, Mingo stack, book it. CJ Stroud with the Tank Dell stack in the third round, book it. So that I love it. Hendon Hooker, Sam Laporta stack, book it. Like, this is a really fun thing that you can do. And you can also get really stinky and dirty with a Stetson Bennett Puka Nacua stacks. Just saying.
Sounds disgusting.
Okay, it does sound disgusting. But it is something where I feel like if you're talking about, so Josh Downs is actually one of my guys that we're going to talk near at the end of this, and we should speed through this just to get to what I have to say at the end here. But
talk about it.
Josh Downs is one of my guys that I need to come out of this draft class with. And here's the thing. Maybe I'll just go through my Josh Downs take right now.
Let's go.
Paris Campbell averaged over 5 targets a game, essentially, totaling 92 targets, or I forgot if it was 92 catches or targets. I think it was catches. 600 yards, only 3 touchdowns. Pickens, Olave, Wilson, and Dotson were the only rookies who scored higher than him in fantasy football, then scored higher than Paris Campbell. Okay. There was not a good quarterback in Indianapolis last year. Let's be frank, right? Paris Campbell was just lacking touchdown upside. Okay. If he had about the same amount of touchdowns as Josh Dotson or Dotson had, I forgot his first name. Jahan, sorry. If he had the same amount of touchdowns as Dotson did, he would have actually been wide receiver 36, which is a wide receiver 3, Paris Campbell. Okay. The upside with Josh Downs is he slides right into that production. Exactly. You can't say he isn't a better receiver. Okay. In college, Josh Downs was a 1. Where he didn't need to be. He had no business being a 1. If you can pull up his size, Shane, because I don't have it in front of me, the guy's small, okay? Yeah. Yet was electric as a 1. He is one of these small guys where it's really hard. Go ahead.
Yeah, he's 171 pounds, 5'9". So he's not a big dude.
5'9", 171. Yet why is he even anywhere close to the second round in rookie drafts? It isn't a Rondale Moore situation where you're drafting Rondale Moore to be a 2 in Arizona's offense. It's not Hollywood Brown. It's a situation where he's actually going to play the slot, specifically a slot guy. So when he has the ability to play outside, but he is now being relegated to a specific slot role. His strengths are route running and quickness and speed. A rookie QB's most friendly target is the tight end. We say that because the middle of the field is usually open somewhere. It's an outlet. It's not so much that the tight end specifically is the guy that a rookie QB's favorite. It's that outlet receiver. Yep. Somewhere, a running back, a tight end, just somewhere where you got the other guys running downfield, stretching the coverage. Josh Downs is going to fit right in. Now, if Paris Campbell averaged 5 targets a game with 600 yards and 3 touchdowns, you could see something happening where he gets 5 touchdowns, 700 yards, and into that 60, 70, 80 catch, which is exactly the production of JSN. Which, again, if you're stacking with Anthony Richardson early in the draft and then early in your second round, you just want that. I mean, I love that. And then there's upside there with a lot more touchdowns because the offense just runs a lot better. A healthier running back. I forgot his name again.
Jonathan Taylor.
That
guy.
Yeah, a healthier Jonathan Taylor with a having to keep defenders in the box to defend the read option with Anthony Richardson. Yeah. I think just screams great production for Josh Downs through And it's a floor that is hard to deny. Sitting as your wide receiver 4 on your starting roster as a rookie pick in the second round, I really love that.
Yeah. So the thing with Josh Downs is I would exercise caution if you're drafting him this year because of the fact that just traditionally when you look at wide receiver production with rookie quarterbacks, it's usually not as good, right, as with an experienced veteran quarterback. So that's one thing. That's one thing that I worry about for Josh Downs for this year. The other thing too is that one of the areas where Anthony Richardson actually did struggle were short and intermediate passes, and that's exactly where Downs is going to be operating on. So that's a little bit of a worry there as well. Michael Pittman's an absolute monster. He's going to be playing in the X on the outside. It's a big body player for a lower completion percentage guy like Anthony Richardson. So I think Josh Downs is definitively going to be the number 2 in that offense, but he's going to be a fantastic slot option, like you mentioned, Matt. Looking at his college production, and this is pure per PFF again. He ran 83%, 95%, and then 87% of his routes in the slot at North Carolina. So he's definitively going to be a slot wide receiver. And it looks like we lost a guy, Matt, there. Oh, you're back. You're back, baby.
Sorry, I had to pick my nose off camera.
Right, here we go. See, it's one thing to say it or to do it off camera and then to come back and to say that you had to do it.
Why'd you have to say that I lost me? I mean, clearly didn't lose me, but no, go ahead.
Trust me, we lost you a long time ago, Matt. We lost you a long time ago. But Josh Downs, man, at 2.1, this is a range where a lot of these guys have he's great, but. The next player off the board is Zach Charbonnet. He's great, but he's now going to be in a massive timeshare. He got to draft capital, which is fantastic, but Ken Walker is a stud. So I worry about the true upside of Zach Charbonnet. Knowing that, and I'm above board here, I had Zach Charbonnet. I think you agree with me, but he was my number 2 running back in the class pre-draft, before we got these draft capital, because we thought Jahmyr Gibbs was going to be a second-round pick alongside Zach Charbonnet. So Charbonnet's number 2 there. Now, this is where it gets very, very interesting. You and I have been having discussions about where the hell we need to be ranking Rashee Rice. He's probably going to be going right around here. He went up to 2.4, right behind Jonathan Mingo. But if you're trying to dissect these players, the Josh Downs, Jonathan Mingo, Rashee Rice, Marvin Mims, and then I'm going to throw in a guy who fell in this draft, Jayden Reed at 3.6. So again, Josh Downs, Jonathan Mingo, who's drafted to Carolina,
Jalen Hyatt needs to probably be ahead of Jayden Reed.
Oh, see, I disagree there. I'm not. But you've been higher on Jalen Hyatt throughout this entire process than I have, which makes sense. But okay, let's not talk about Jayden Reed then, okay? Because I think maybe they're in the lower tier there. But Josh Downs, Jonathan Mingo, Rashee Rice, Marvin Mims. How you sorting those guys out?
Yeah, I like Downs. See that I'm a lot higher on Mingo than a lot of people are.
Yeah.
Because I do, in what is very indicative of wide receiver performance is speed score, not so much speed in general, but just size adjusted speed. And that's what makes, when you look at guys like Mingo and you're like, well, why Mingo? He's not extremely productive in college. Well, that's okay. Again, you can't teach speed, and you can't teach size. Jalen Hyatt, 180 pounds, like that dude is not putting on 40 pounds of muscle or 40 pounds of anything to get anywhere near the size of Mingo. So can you coach away some of their inconsistencies at the position? Yes, you can, right? You can do that. So that's why Mingo, if you're going to take a shot on somebody, might as well take a shot on somebody that has staying power in the NFL, which Bryce Young, again, you got a bunch of old guys, or Terrace Marshall. Terrace Marshall's actually the one there. And he is. I mean, that's the truth, because that freaking Adam Thielen isn't a 1. So he's playing the X.
No. Let's not be cockamamie here.
That's the truth. So now, is Mingo going to take that away? Sure. Like, you know what I mean? But Terrace Marshall is probably the CeeDee Lamb in that offense right now. Okay. Is that going to change? I do believe it's going to change. What's not going to change is Adam Thielen's role. That's for sure not going to change. And then Mingo has everything possible to go out there, become Bryce Young's favorite receiver. And that's the same thing about Rashee Rice, but then that's the way that you should flip. Like Rashee Rice has Mahomes, right? So like obviously he probably should be the 2-1, and honestly probably should go ahead of Flowers, right? I've been really accosting you about your Rashee Rice, rankings and takes, but the fact is with Mahomes, you can theorize away that if Rashee Rice hits, he's going to hit in a big way. If Zay Flowers hits, you still don't see Zay Flowers as a number 1 wide receiver for a Lamar Jackson-led run-first offense where Rashee Rice could easily grab 2 touchdowns a game if fed in the proper way. So I like Rashee Rice ahead of Zay Flowers at the 112. That's me.
That's bold.
It is bold, and I'm happy to be bold. That's why I'm saying trade back from 112. Don't be the guy selecting Flowers, because even if Flowers hits what? Hits what? Hits where? What's he looking at? 1,000 yards? I just don't see it. Lamar Jackson's not getting you a 1,000-yard receiver. I just can't see that. Prove me wrong. Fine. Let's trade back, grab something for next year, draft Rashee Rice where you're hitting on the high side. And then Mims is also, I like Mims. I was very high on Mims pre-draft. I love Russell Wilson, right? He's my former Super Bowl winning QB. He knows how to target guys. He knows how to find them. Okay. He's obviously not linking well with Jerry Jeudy, right? Cortland Sutton is a little older. Okay, so Marvin Mims could slide in if they want to try to tailor the offense around what he had in Seattle. Marvin Mims, you could see a great path to production. They've always looked for a guy like that with the KJ Hamler. Marvin Mims probably fits right in there, but I like Hyatt over Mims because go ahead.
Well, for one, I like Mims because of, again, the opportunity. I like the draft capital of Marvin Mims. The thing is, he definitely profiles to be a slot wide receiver, which is, spoiler alert, it's going to be a lot of these wide receivers in this class, right? He ran 76% of his routes in college or last season at Oklahoma. But here's the thing that I like, Matt, is that typically when you look at these higher volume players, so the slot wide receivers that have a lower average depth of target, his average depth of target in college was 17, 17.6, and 15.4, which means even though he's going to be playing a traditional spot in the slot, he still has the ability to stretch the field. And that's what I like about Marvin Mims. I think that he's going to be, when you look at how Jerry Jeudy profiles, how Cortland Sutton profiles, he is a different type of wide receiver than those players. They're going to be playing on the outside. Now, the thing is that it's going to have to be 3 wide receiver sets. But we also know that this was the first player that Denver drafted in the new Sean Payton regime. And they're not just going to take a shot at this guy when they have a lot of other needs, because we know how Denver did last year. They didn't do too hot. They went out, they got another wide receiver for Russ. I'm in the camp that last year was just, it's got to be an anomaly, right? Russ Wilson has been a stud his entire career. You're a Seattle Seahawks fan. He doesn't just show up and suck, right? It was a situation. I think they babied him a little bit too much. He was the guy who was the untouchable. They need to just treat him as another player. And it sounds like Sean Payton is going to do that. I mean, first thing he said is that he's not going to have his own private trainers in the locker room. So to me, that's more of a headspace type thing. And Marvin Mims coming in, I like the talent there. I do have him after Rashee Rice. I'm taking Rashee Rice ahead of him. But honestly, if I'm doing 3 drafts, I'm probably going to flip it, right? I've got them all in the same tier. I've got I've got Mims, Rice, and Jayden Reed all in a similar tier.
Yeah, I love Jayden Reed too, especially if you're a team that has Jordan Love, which a lot of, and you can get Jayden Reed. I think that you're going to have to get Jayden Reed at the back end of the second round. So can you go and get him if you have a Jordan Love offense? I think that you will. You will be able to find a package. Go get Jayden Reed. I love the opportunity. I love the upside. I love the size where some of these guys like Mims are undersized. Now, getting back to our mock draft to kind of put a bow on it, because I know we're getting a little long. I've got a lot to say.
Yeah.
Bigsby, Roschon Johnson, Tajay Spears went at the 2, 8, 9, and 10. I'm okay with that. I would just flop the 2 tight ends that went after them. The Michael Mayer fell, which I almost picked Mayer at 2-5. Probably should have. I mean, I like Kendre Miller, but I love Michael Mayer.
You're smart. You're smart.
I know I went smart. I mean, that's okay. Yep. I tend to win these drafts every time I do them. Just joking. And then Sam Laporta, that is freaking criminal. Sam Laporta went 212. Are you kidding me? He is a guy that also, I'll get through my Sam Laporta thing. The very first thing I put is, how dare you? Okay. Sam Laporta with a 1 QB dynasty rookie ADP of about 3.8 in some avenues. I can't understand how you would even in a 1 QB non-premium, how Spears, Bigsby, or Abanikanda is ahead of Sam Laporta. I can't get behind it. They were the number 1 offense in the league at points. Jameson Williams is out 6 games. Gibbs, sure, they got to find some place for Gibbs, but Tyler Higbee was always a nice outlet for Goff. Fits into the future of their team. Draft capital, they grabbed him ahead of a lot of tight ends. Sam Laporta, it's criminal. It is criminal. I'm not drafting Charbonnet over Sam Laporta. I am not drafting Mims over Sam Laporta in a premium league. In a 1 QB, I'm not drafting Bigsby, Spears, Abanikanda, Gray, any of these running backs over Sam Laporta. I just think it's criminal. It's criminal here.
Matt, when you look at the impact that one of these running backs can have if they end up slotting into your starting lineup, it's going to be significantly more impactful on a weekly basis than drafting one of these tier fringe tight end 12 to 17s, which is what Sam Laporta is going to be. If they weren't going to use Hawkinson consistently, what makes you think you're going to use Sam Laporta consistently in that offense?
Why? That's this. But see, this is the double side of the mouth thing. Okay, so if they weren't able to use Swift consistently, so why would you value Gibbs so high then? If you're using that,
that's why I worry about Gibbs.
Okay, but that's fine. I'm saying that a lot of people aren't worrying about Gibbs at all. So
no.
I'm not saying we're not questioning it, but if you can't say the question about Gibbs, then you're not allowed to say the same idealism about Laporta. You can't use one to your benefit and one to the opposite. The difference is they drafted Laporta ahead of pretty much every good tight end in this class that you love or want to love. They went and grabbed their guy.
Matt, just for the people, they drafted him at pick 203, Sam Laporta. So, yeah, they did spend a high round 2 draft capital pick on Sam Laporta. Okay, so just for the people, I have Sam Laporta baked in at 2.11 in my rookie ranking. So for me, I feel like that's a nice spot for him, falling at around 212. To me, that's right around that zone. Let's move on quickly here and let's just high level discuss round 3 of this draft, because after round 3, and the reason we chose to do just 3 rounds is because after round 3, I talked about a dog's breakfast from like round 2 on. It's really just pick your guys beyond round 3. If you've got a player that's fallen, it doesn't matter if they're going at the 5-3, get them in round 4. Just get your guys in rounds 4 and 5. But rounds 3, let's go 3.6. Let's go 3.1 to 3.6 here, Matt, and then we'll go to 3.7 to 3.12, and we'll close it out. So 3.1, your guy Jalen Hyatt went. He was drafted to New York Giants. Kayshon Boutte went 3.2. He was, of course, drafted by the New England Patriots. Cedric Tillman drafted at pick 3.3. He went to the Cleveland Browns. Then Chase Brown went at 3.4. He was drafted by Cincinnati. You went and got the country singer himself, Luke Musgrave at 3.5, tight end, drafted by Green Bay.
Value.
And then Jaden Reed, another value, drafted by Green Bay, went to 3.6 to our guy, Brandon D. Adam. So of that group, I would say the best value, because just based off my rankings, was definitely Jaden Reed. You went Luke Musgrave. Talk to me about Luke Musgrave at 3.5 there.
Yeah, I had to pick between Jaden Reed and Luke Musgrave. I liked them both in the same offense. In a tight end premium, I got to go Musgrave. We didn't really put it down as if this was a premium or not. I kind of had assumed that everybody just assumed it was. I don't know that it was drafted as it was, but in a tight end premium, if Luke Musgrave gets to you at 3.5, you got to smash it. I understand that a lot of people talk about how you're taking whoever's cheaper between Musgrave and Kuntz, or I think it's Kuntz that's there. It's one of the other guys. Okay, but I get that. But at 3.5, I mean, yes, Jaden Reed was there, so maybe that's the way to go. But it's replacement value. That's exactly why I'm talking about Laporta over a Bigsby or Spears. Sure, I can understand that Bigsby or Spears, barring an injury, they can get up and get some opportunity and makes them a little bit more valuable. I can understand that. There's not a lot of running backs that are out there giving you top 12, but my whole thing is Bigsby and Spears are behind guys that are clear number ones. And so they will not be taking the job away from those guys. Where Laporta, if Laporta hits, he's tied in 6 or 7, where the replacement value is not good at all. So I'm going to take the tight end over a wide receiver in a premium. Jaden Reed's, though, is great. I can't argue it. I probably would have gone Reed over Tillman at 3.3. So that's probably where I would have rather had gone, and then I wouldn't have had to worry about it at 3.5. But to finish the end of it, Abanikanda went 7, Zach Evans went 8, Stetson Bennett went 3.9 in the Superflex. That's actually a good pick. I like that. Went up, grabbed your guy. Eric Gray 10, Deuce Vaughn 11, and then Schoonmaker at 12. And a tight end premium like Schoonmaker, especially if you have Jake Ferguson. I just like locking up whoever's going to come out of the the pile of dogs, and so that's good.
It's fine. So
go ahead.
Just
I want to finish that before I get into my sleepers here. I got some guys I want to talk about.
Yeah, real quick. I just want to talk about Israel Abanikanda. I took him at 3.7. I think that's a good spot for him. And one of the reasons is just he is an overall athlete. Like he's a bit of a dog, right? So he's 97th percentile college dominator rating. We like his size. He's 5'10", 216 pounds. Again, we talked about I'm a bit of a BMI snob. He's got a 31 BMI, which means he's thick, baby. I like the fact he's got a 97th percentile burst score. Problem is he has a very lackluster receiving profile. We don't know if he can do it at the next level. And of course, it's a very, 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 very crowded running back room. I get the feeling that Izzy was a bit of an insurance policy here. It sounds like Breece Hall is going to be ready by the start of the season, Matt, but you never really truly know with these ACL injuries if they're going to be 100%. So maybe they ease him into the
We're talking he's a high-end handcuff at this point.
He's a high-end handcuff. For whatever reason, the Jets hate Michael Carter. Michael Carter's a stud. Every time he touches the ball, he looked pretty good, but he's a smaller player. Of course, they have Zonovan Knight. Just a guy is about as replacement value as you can get. But we saw that Zonovan Knight had his weeks where he stepped in for Breece Hall, where you were slotting him in as a flex play. If you were in need, right? On a weekly basis. Yeah. So he had fantasy impact, and Izzy Abanikanda is going to come in, I think, and I agree with you, Matt, as that handcuff to Breece Hall. So if you have Breece Hall and you are a little bit worried about what's going to happen this season, Izzy Abanikanda is a very, very cheap option you can get in the middle. Frankly, I would be comfortable taking him anywhere around 3 if you've got a Breece Hall on your team and you're worried about if he's going to start, because you know you're going to have the definitive handcuff. Now, obviously, things change. If Izzy isn't, catching on to the game, we can adjust. But as of right now, before training camps have even started, definitively it's going to be Izzy Abanikanda. Matt, let's talk about some of your sleepers and let's get the hell out of here.
Yeah,
very quick. Rapid fire.
Well, I could just kind of read this so I'm talking about free guys, essentially free for what you could have. You waited around. If you did, you're going to get some gems right here. We're digging up some gems. So let's talk about this. Shane.
Yes.
Ben Skoranek. He's on your dynasty team. Okay. You know him. You love him. Ben Skoranek. But guess who's going to take away all of Ben Skoranek's production? Drafted in the 5th round out of BYU, my guy, Puka Nacua. Okay.
Love it.
I've been on Puka Nacua for a while. I'm not nothing special, but he just on tape looks as a hustler. He profiles as a bona fide hustler. He's a gadget guy. Sean McVay's offense is favorable for guys that can slot in different positions, play stuff everywhere, all over the field. Puka should take Ben Skoranek's place by the end of the year, and Van Jefferson can't seem to live up to his hype. Just screams,
healthy, man.
Yeah, it just screams opportunity for Puka Nacua, and he's going to be free. He's free. He's going to be a guy who probably won't even get drafted, should just be on your taxi squad. Book it. Okay, another guy, Charlie Jones. Okay,
football, baby.
Yeah, Purdue. I didn't love Charlie. So here's the thing. I fought to hate Charlie Jones. His combine was lackluster, in my opinion. I mean, he was out there. He's a hustler too, but his combine's lackluster. Well, he's he's not the best, guy with sizzle and pizzazz.
Well,
But
let's Matt, just real quick here. Okay, so Charlie Jones, he was drafted out of Purdue, like you mentioned. Here's the thing: he's 5'11", 175 pounds. So he's short. He ran a 4.43 40-yard dash, which is only an 88th. Well, for size, it's only an 88th percentile. Typically, that minimum Mendoza line for success in the NFL is a 90 speed score, right? We don't need our wide receivers super fast, but for their size, we need them to be above that 90th percentile or that 90 mark. And that worries. Not percentile, just that 90 mark, which is about a 45th percentile.
Yeah, he's small. I mean, that's fine.
Yeah.
But again, the guy who he's playing behind was never known as a phenomenal athlete, and that's Tyler Boyd. He's not somebody that, I mean, Tyler Boyd has never been anybody that you're extremely happy to go out there and draft. You're having to, but as a wide receiver 3 in a Joe Burrow-led offense, Charlie Jones, if he can slot in and get opportunity, he will do probably exactly what Tyler Boyd has done. It's not pop, flash, or sizzle, but again, he should be on your taxi squads as somebody that did have production in college that looks good.
Love it.
Another guy, and probably will end up not being extremely free. Might have to go get this guy in the 4th round, 5th round, but Jake Haener. Okay, quarterback of the Saints, Fresno State QB. I hate giving my nuggets out to guys I play fantasy with like you freaking charlatans. Here's the thing. Guess who also played QB in college at Fresno State? Derek Carr. Okay, he's behind Derek Carr. Derek Carr, are we good that Derek Carr's good? I mean, he might not be good. Saints went out and grabbed him, paid him a lot of money, but is Derek Carr good? Here's the thing. Jake Haener, in your S2 score, scored somewhere near Bryce Young. I mean, he's got a great offensive-minded brain. He can run he's smart with the football. He's small. He's not super small, but he's small enough to where you don't love him. But he's Brock Purdy. I mean, he's Brock Purdy in a draft where you get a lot of these quarterbacks coming out like Stetson Bennett, who I'm really not a big fan of. When you watch Jake Haener and Stetson Bennett, you can see that Jake Haener, in my opinion, is clear as day better than Stetson Bennett. Will be a little more free. I mean, Stetson Bennett and Jake Haener are probably very much in similar situations. Matt Stafford, Derek Carr, not the best QBs anymore, a little old in the tooth. If Derek Carr can't get it done, you could see Jake Haener pulling some like a Russell Wilson thing where he just takes the job. I mean, if he's looking good in practice, getting the ball out to his guys. And the thing about the Saints are they're in a win now position. The Saints are not in a lay and wait. That's why they paid all that money to Derek Carr. If they find themselves a Brock Purdy, they're going to play him. And that's exactly what the 49ers are doing. That's why Trey Lance is not even in the conversation anymore because they need to win now. So Jake Haener is somebody that's going to be free in your drafts. Please go and get him. Okay.
He's probably not going to be drafted until the 5th round. So if you like Jake Haener and you've got a strong pulse on him, then go and get him. He was picked one slot before Stetson Bennett, the aforementioned. So of course Stetson Bennett's got the name brand because he won national championship with Georgia twice. The thing is, he's a bit of a knucklehead, and he's small. We talk about Bryce Young being small. Bryce Young's 5'10", weighed in at 204. Stetson Bennett, 5'11", 192. That's small for a quarterback, especially in the NFL. So
how big is Jake Haener?
Jake Haener is 6 foot 207. So not huge, like 6 foot still short, but it's not horrendous, right? Guys that we like to compare him to, like Will Levis, 6'4", 229. He's a monster, right? Hendon Hooker, 6'3", 217 pounds. He's a monster. CJ Stroud, 6'3", 214 pounds. He's a monster, of course. The biggest monster of them all.
Caleb Williams is going to be a 6-foot quarterback next year.
He's got talent, though. He's special. Anthony Richardson, Matt, just to close this one out, 6'4", 244 pounds. Just an absolute tank of a man. Matt, we're on an hour and 3 minutes.
Okay, hold on. My last guy here.
Last guy.
This is my last guy. For the people. This is dirty. This is really dirty.
I like it when you talk dirty to me, Matt.
I'm going to talk really dirty to you. Justin Shorter. Okay.
Who's Justin Shorter? Tell the people, Matt.
You don't even know who he is. That's what I'm saying. Drafted to the Buffalo Bills. Look him up right now on Player Profiler. Listen, Gabe Davis. Let me give it to you. 6'2", 216 with a 4.22 draft capital, running a 4.54 with a 34% dominator in college. Came out. Go ahead.
Drafted out of Florida.
Yes. That's Shorter, right? Gabe Davis.
Shorter, yep.
Yeah. So Gabe Davis saw a lot, and he's falling. Gabe Davis is falling. His value's falling, right? Gabe Davis has opportunity, seems to be liked by the coaching staff, right?
Yep.
All that is fine. Let me tell you another guy, Justin Shorter. He is taller at 6'3", bigger at 224.
224, yeah.
Had a draft capital of 5.16, so they're not very far away from where the team values them. Runs a 4.55, which is very similar to Gabe Davis. But the fact is, the size-adjusted athleticism was Shorter, was top 5 in the class. Okay? He sits up there with Jonathan Mingo because for a 6-foot big guy, 6'3", 224, the guy runs a 4.55.
Which is a 107 speed score, which, again, anything over 100 is usually very good. So 107 is very, very good.
Yeah, and big. And he is big. So fourth most athletic at the position, okay? He is just a guy that where Gabe Davis is falling because he just isn't great. Well, we knew he wasn't great. The difference is the landing spot's great. So if you look at a guy like Rashee Rice falling to Patrick Mahomes, you look at a guy like Justin Shorter, who big, athletic, off-ball catches are really great. Go watch his tape. Okay, now here's the problem. When you go watch his tape, you realize it's Anthony Richardson throwing the ball. And it actually sucks because Anthony Richardson's underthrowing him. It's a very similar tape to Mingo. I promise you, when you go watch Justin Shorter, the tape is so similar to Mingo, where the ball is just not given to this guy with consistency. So if Bryce Young can get the ball to him more consistently, and you have Josh Allen getting the ball to Shorter more consistently, it props up guys like Gabe Davis. So I look at Justin Shorter as he could slot in as the wide receiver too, and he will be absolutely free in your dynasty drafts this year. Get all those guys, put them on your taxi squad, and thank me later.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. You'll thank us later when you go to dfsarmy.com and get a VIP membership and you start cashing in at your DFS contests nearly immediately. We got them all. We got NASCAR, Matt. We got MMA. We still got NBA. We still got NHL. We don't have any NFL, though, which sucks. But we do have things like Underdog to go and do our best ball drafts on. dfsarmy.com, dfsarmy.com. Matt, we are officially in the quiet season, but we're still going to be here. We're going to be talking about rookies over the next few months. We're going to be talking about best ball and best ball strategy, getting you up to July, where we get definitively into redraft season. So we're just getting started. If you like what you're listening to, thank you so much for those of you who've listened to the end here. Give us a like. Please subscribe to our channel. We are a niche channel. We are the DFS Army Fantasy Football Show, and we're going to be here every single week. We're out.
Big time, knowing that.